What's up, party people? We're in the house, ready to draft once again. It's mock time. That is right. And we got a full PPR draft tonight. Only two receivers and one flex. I don't know what we're going to do with ourselves, but I guess just get a deeper bench. Chris, I feel like we're almost in. It's like it's in the air. It's not quite there, but it's almost actual draft season. I mean, I know some people are actually drafting, but I mean, I don't know. I think some people are already drafting for real,
Oh
aren't
yeah.
they? I mean, it's a month away, right?
Well, that's about a month, right? September 8th, I think the 7th or 8th is the first game, so about a month. But yeah, definitely drafts going on right now for sure.
All right. So we're mocking it up, but we're also doing real drafts. And in fact, it is possible if you want to play not just in a mock draft, but in a real draft and join a league with us, against us. You can join a league and compete either against me, against Chris, or even both. That's right. We have several leagues to choose from. Well, all of that is if you are a member of the Flock, flockfantasy.com/endgame. Join now if you haven't already, and then you can get in on the action. So we have a lot of stuff on there. It's too much for me to even name. That's why we built this handy graphic, so you can read it. But anyways, check it out if you haven't already. There's a free trial if you just want to check things out. If you have a fear of commitment, whatever it is. So flockfantasy.com/endgame. I'll say it again in the middle and at the end because that's where you want to be. Get our rankings, get access to our leagues, our mock drafts that you can get your spot nice and early, just like everybody else who's already in. So that brings me to the bad news. There's only one spot up for grabs. In fact, only one recently vacated. We were full like last night, but it looks like there is one. So I guess that's good. We'll
Yeah.
see who gets in first, who's got the quickest trigger finger. The link is
Here
about
we
to drop,
go.
so we'll see.
There it is. Cool Ranch Doritos.
All right, Doritos. All right, didn't think that was a surprise. That was a dark horse. Um, all right, so we're full. Let's get to it. It's time to draft. Chris, you're at the 4. I took the 6. See how that turns out. Not my favorite spot, but can't always get what you want.
Yeah, I literally decide my draft spot. I go online and I Google 12-sided dice roll. And then it's just random. It's like it does like a random roll of a 12-sided dice, and whatever number it picks, that's where I go.
Interesting. All right. I
So
might try to
I
mix it up because like I think last night I was at the 9 or 10, something like that. So yes, I try to go beginning, middle, end. We draft 3 times a week.
yeah, I will do that. Like, let's say if I had the 4 tonight, and then let's say tomorrow we were drafting and I roll and I get the 3 or the 5, I'll probably re-roll and try to get like somewhere a little more away. But yeah, typically I just roll the dice. I have Google or the computer roll the dice, I guess. Whatever I get, I get.
There we go. That's a good method. I know. Sorry, everyone who didn't quite get in. Hey, stick around, watch, check out how things go because if you're looking at a certain draft position or you just want to see what unfolds, guys who are maybe rising, falling. That's why we do this often. Um, and what's up to some of our usual suspects here? Ronnie saying what's up. He's at the 5. Got Cooper
Yeah, I
Cup.
got Cup.
Cup fell. I just took Cup in a best ball and I got him at the 5 spot and I felt pretty good about that. I mean, I know there's slight concerns. We're not worried about week 1, right?
Well, no, sir, and certainly not in like an underdog best ball league. You're not worried about week 1, but I don't think I'm even worried. Like as of right now, I'm not worried about Cup. It's still, like we said, a month away. Unless if it's getting close to the season and they're like, yeah, we don't know, I don't know, then maybe I'll start getting worried. But right now, I'm not worried.
Yeah, not to worry. It doesn't sound like a major concern. Um, so what's up, everyone else? Rise above. I don't know. I think we've talked enough about Jonathan Taylor this week. Do we go over the Jonathan Taylor thing again?
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing changed.
he'll play somewhere. He has to. He'll either get traded. I will say, with them signing all these running backs and them almost signing Kareem Hunt, it makes me wonder if they are actually trying to trade him.
Well, I mean, to some extent, looking for a guy like, I mean, not that Kareem Hunt, again, we keep saying like Kareem Hunt wasn't that good last year, and he's obviously, not this huge threat, but the fact that they were trying to lure him away from the Saints and like, we'll give you more money, like that kind of reeks of desperation. Like that, the way they went about it, you know what I'm saying? Like signing Kenyon Drake off the street, like that doesn't worry me. But yeah, it's just interesting the way they're going about it. Which is not necessarily the smartest way, but hey, it's Jim Irsay.
Yeah. He can't hold out, though. Can't.
No, it doesn't do him any good. It accomplishes nothing.
Yeah, he can't. Not like Josh Jacobs, who actually can. He can't hold out. I mean, he can, but then he's a Colt next year on the last year of his deal again, so he got nothing for it. So
yeah,
he's either going to play with the Colts or he's going to play somewhere else. That's my feeling.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, I'm not worried about him not playing. Josh Jacobs is a whole different thing. All right, so there goes Jonathan Taylor right before me, which not that I was going to take him anyways. I won't be John. I'll go with my guy Javonte Smith. Pretty big fan. Going Pollard, skipping right over the two guys. Well, I guess there was more guys, but skipping over the guys ahead of him on the ADP and the rankings. That would be Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb.
Yeah, like Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb are fine, but I always say, if you're going to draft a running back in the first 2, even maybe 3 rounds, you want a guy who you feel like can be the overall running back 1.
There you go.
I don't feel that way about Chubb and Henry. It's just like
we should. I don't know. Should we expand on that?
No, I don't think we need to expand on it. But I mean,
I did see a comment. Someone, as a Clayton, there is telling you to talk about Nick Chubb and the. We have to throw that in there once in a while.
I mean, it's just hard to be the RB1 when you don't catch a lot of passes. Now, Derrick Henry was potentially going to do it 2 years ago, and we don't know. Look, he only played 8 games. You don't know what he would have done in the second half of the season. But he wasn't catching a bunch of passes. He was, what did he have, like 13 touchdowns through 8 games or something insane like that? 12 touchdowns. It was like insane, right? He was scoring like 1 to 2 touchdowns every single game. So you either need to be the RB1. You need to be a guy who can catch 50 plus passes. I'm sorry, neither of those guys are going to do it. Or you need to score like 20 touchdowns like JT did a couple years ago when he caught 40 passes, but he had 20 touchdowns or 21 touchdowns.
Yeah, scoring a ton of touchdowns is always the way to go, but good luck trying to predict that.
All right, yeah, so I'm not banking on that.
Michael, I see Michael making his comment. Are you Cool Ranch Doritos? Because I don't see your username on here. He used to be like Seahawks fan or something, but
he's at the 10. So he was gonna try to practice 0 running back, and instead he went 0 wide receiver.
Tragic. What is it?
Yeah, his name on here is Tragic Lugnuts.
Oh, all right, good to know. All right, so was going to go 0 RB and then went double RB. But look.
I mean, Eckler Saquon Barkley is a great double running back start. I can't argue with that start at all.
And this
those are 2 good running backs.
Yeah, there's only 2 receivers that you need to start. Sorry.
Bless you.
Only 2 receivers you need to start, 1 flex, so nothing wrong. Okay, he says that's his Xbox tag. All right. Now
this is the format. If you're going to do double RB, this is the format to do it in. For sure.
Okay. Well, we have another zero wide receiver team here. Paper going tight end, running back, running back.
That is it. That is definitely interesting. But look, I mean, Kelsey, Taylor, Jacobs. If Jacobs plays, that's can't be too upset with that start.
Talk about rolling the dice. Yeah, that's rolling the dice. You go
Yeah.
both running backs that are holding out. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. NMB, not sure. He's saying RB's in the deadline. Are you excited about? Are you
I think
talking
he's
about
saying that. I think he means the dead zone.
the dead zone? That's what I'm thinking, right? Like late-ish round RBs.
Yeah. I think we've talked about most of them. I mean, it'll be guys like Dobbins, Akers, Sanders, Pierce. I think we've talked about most of them.
I mean, it depends where you think the dead zone starts. I mean, this year, it's kind of weird because I feel like this year, once you get past the obvious studs, there's a lot of running backs left that are like kind of mid to low end RB2s that are like clear bell cows. Like they're the very obvious only running back on their team. And so
Yeah.
I feel like those guys are just like screaming value. So there's a lot of guys I'm excited about. I know we've talked about them. Like beyond that, I mean, it just depends again where you think the cutoff is. I think Rashad White, I guess, counts because a lot of people are skeptical on him. I think he's a guy that I'm big on. Like I'm not big on Javonte Williams. I'm not too crazy about Isaiah Pacheco. I am big on James Cook and Brian Robinson. I know you're big on Gibson. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Robinson, Gibson, you're starting to get into like you're outside the dead zone now and you're kind of in the later rounds.
Okay.
But I do agree with you. Like, especially this year, it feels like with everybody getting burned by running backs the last couple of years. And we've also seen like the last 2 years, the RB1 has not put up, incredible RB1 seasons. Like not like 22, 23, 24 point per game type seasons. They've just been really good. They've just been the RB1. I think we are seeing running backs fall, but we're also seeing like you said, like used to be like the running backs in the dead zone were like guys who weren't clear lead backs, were in, ambiguous backfields, or maybe just weren't very talented guys on bad offenses. Now, like you said, you got guys like that are clear. Like if J.K. Dobbins is playing, he's the clear workhorse in Baltimore. If Cam Akers is playing, he's the clear workhorse for the Rams. Same with Dameon Pierce. Like, I don't ever remember just having running backs where it's like, hey, this guy is going to be the clear lead back, and he's sitting there for you in like the 6th round, 7th round, like just sitting there for you.
Yeah, it is weird. I feel like this, if anything, this year there's so many great values at running back. It makes me want to not draft running back back to back. I want that one. You do need at least one stud running back.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have to. Yeah, I'm still just loading up on receivers early. And now we're seeing some of these guys drafting. Well, I guess I could say we see Heath drafting a couple of these running backs early because he knew he wouldn't get them on the way back. Both Swift and Akers. 3rd round, 4th round. That's definitely early for those guys.
Yeah, very early for those guys. Just as we're talking about them as dead zone running backs, they're now early round running backs. Apparently, yeah, it feels definitely a little early for those guys.
Yeah, no knock on Heath. And look, those guys would not have come back to you probably the end of 5th and 6th rounds. I got a decision to make here. Do I go running back? I'll take my guy. I keep taking DJ Moore. Happy with that.
Yeah, that's good value there. I would have loved to get DJ Moore here.
I think I still get a good running back on the way back in the 5th. But yeah, look, I do want to talk especially about Swift. I mean, Akers, there's no denying it's his backfield. I don't know. We got a report, and Roberto was asking about Kenneth Gainwell, and he's getting all these touches, and Rashad Penny is like, hey, he's just the one. Look, I'm still drafting Swift, but then maybe I'm fooling myself into thinking I should trust an Eagles running back. But I mean, I don't know. Is this? I'm worried not that Swift is going to be like a bust or he's going to be totally useless, but I'm worried maybe that the Eagles' backfield is just going to be annoying.
Well, I don't view Swift. I don't think Swift's going to be a workhorse in Philadelphia, but didn't last year. First of all, didn't Miles Sanders flat out say don't draft me in fantasy last year?
He sure did.
And then he had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. Like, if you just ignore all camp noise and camp reports, you'll probably be better off than 95% of the people out there as far as drafting goes. Like, I don't care what Kenneth Gainwell did in practice. I don't care who's getting run with the ones in the first week of August. Like, I don't care. Like, I really don't care. Like, teams aren't practicing for a game. They're trying out all sorts of different things right now, putting guys in different situations to see how they respond. Like, this is not the time to be buying into like, oh my gosh, this guy's got more snaps with the ones than this guy, or this guy's completed more passes in 7-on-7 than this guy. It's like, no, don't fall for these traps. Like, certainly there are situations where there are battles going on, and in those situations it makes sense. Like if we're getting reports continually that Kyle Trask is outplaying Baker Mayfield, then maybe Kyle Trask is the week 1 starter. But that's a situation where we know like that's not a locked in. Like we started hearing reports right now that like Elijah Mitchell looks better in camp than Christian McCaffrey. Are we dropping Christian McCaffrey? No, of course not. Like, so don't fall for this stuff. But also, I don't think Swift will be a workhorse. I never thought he would be a workhorse.
Well, no.
I don't think he needs to be in this offense because again, Miles Sanders just had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns, and Swift's a highly efficient runner. He's an explosive runner. So certainly there's risk with Swift, of course, but I think the upside is there.
Well, as far as Gainwell himself, like, look, I don't read into that. Gainwell is not a rookie. He's been in the league a couple of years. He's in the same situation, same team.
Yeah,
I am going to take Dobbins here. So that's a
if they loved Kenneth Gainwell, they would not have signed Rashad Penny and traded for DeAndre Swift.
Right.
Like
again,
they know
a feature back.
They've seen Gainwell. They know what he is. If they loved him, they wouldn't go out and trade and bring in 2 running backs. Like, nah.
Yeah. And his role is not going to change. It is what it is. And I don't care that Sirianni wears his T-shirt or whatever. That doesn't matter. But my thing is, I want to like just completely be mistaken and assume, which could totally turn out to be right, but just assume, Rashad Penny's going to get hurt week 1 or before the season starts, and then he's a non-factor. Like, just totally exclude him, and ignore him, because then it's like, okay, well, what if Penny does stay healthy, and then he at least eats into the touches in that backfield? You know what I mean? So then you do have kind of a 3-headed monster. Well, then maybe DeAndre Swift isn't the guy you necessarily want every week as your RB2. You know what I mean? Maybe he is just kind of a third guy, a rotational back.
I mean, maybe.
NMB doesn't think
so. I'm definitely more worried about Penny for Swift than Gainwell.
Well, we have a Gainwell stand here and be saying that Gainwell will be the 1A by end of the year.
I mean, if Penny and Swift are both hurt, he probably will have to be. And look, there's definitely potential for Penny and Swift to be hurt by the end of the year. Like, that's it's not even like a crazy out of the question thing. So, but again, like you look at Kenneth Gainwell, 26% of the snaps last year, 28% of the snaps the year before. They know what they have in Kenneth Gainwell. If they felt like Kenneth Gainwell could be a lead back, you don't sign Penny and then trade for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree. I had not really given that much thought to Kenneth Gainwell until today. So it tells you something. But I'm not buying into it. To me, it just occurred like maybe it is possible that Rashad Penny doesn't get hurt. I just that was the first thing. I was like, maybe I'm just jumping the gun there. But it's not going to change. It still is what it is. And Boston Scott will still come in and score 6 random touchdowns to make everybody mad.
Only in 2 games when they play the Giants, though.
Yeah, exactly.
3 touchdowns each game. Don't start your running backs against your Eagles running backs against the Giants unless they're named Boston Scott.
We learned that lesson. All right, let's see what's here. Well. So I just realized I don't have to look at quarterback because everybody after me has a quarterback.
You're right.
That's interesting. Quarterback's the one position here. It's like from week to week. I shouldn't say week to week. I say from draft to draft, day to day. I never really know. All right. Apologies, but not really.
Yeah, quarterback is definitely the position where you got to kind of read the room, so to speak, and like, are they going early? Are people waiting? And yeah, it's definitely that kind of position because you just never know league to league how they're going to value QB. I don't love any of these guys. Too early.
And Andre's asking, do you take a tight end too early? Kyle Pitts at the 6'2"? No, I don't think that's too early.
I was going to say it is. I just can't. I mean, I like Kyle Pitts, but in this format, it's not as bad because you only need 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex, which you kind of already have.
Right.
So in this format, it's not as damaging, so to speak. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of good players on the board. So
yeah, I mean, it's a 2 receiver, not a 3 receiver league. Less starting players. Because it's Pitts. Like if that was a Kittle or a Goddard or someone else, yeah, I think for Pitts it's worth taking a shot there. What's up, King? Been a while. Yep, definitely too long.
What is up? Yes.
All right. Zay Flowers off the board. Mason got a question. Explain the love for J.K. Dobbins. Well, he barely didn't jack because he tore his knee, and then last year was the recovering from the tearing of the knee. But if you remember when he did play last year, he was averaging, 5.6 yards per carry?
He's averaged over 5.5 yards per carry for his career. Yeah, look, his rookie year, you can't knock his rookie year. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't go out there and like dominate, but he played very well as a rookie. Then he tore his ACL going into year 2. Like, I mean, Breece Hall just tore his ACL. Like, are we gonna be talking about Breece Hall? Like, come on, the guy's barely. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, he tore his ACL. Like, missed an entire season. And then, of course, he was battling back from it last year. So,
I actually bet because this year we're not expecting great things from Breece Hall, and especially if they do get Dalvin Cook. If it's just kind of a mediocre or just disappointing season for Breece Hall, then next year everyone's going to be exactly the same. They'll be like, what has he done? He had a few good games as a rookie, and then that was it. It's the same thing. I mean, Look, nobody was more anti J.K. Dobbins last year than we were. I mean, it's like, I'm not touching him at all. And then, everyone came out with the pitchforks and the Dobbins truthers were like,
oh man, they were
they were fierce.
All right, no joke. The funniest thing to me about fantasy football is how passionate grown men get about football players, not their teams, literal players, and not even players like on their favorite teams. Just like, it's cool if you're high on Javonte Williams, or it's cool if you're high on Breece Hall. But just because I say I don't think Breece Hall is going to be good this year because he's coming off ACL, doesn't mean I'm attacking Breece Hall. I'm not personally attacking Breece Hall. Like people, like the way these guys guys defend these guys in the comments sometimes and stuff. In our comments is just, and even on Twitter, I see it on Twitter. It's just hilarious to me. It's like, why? Like what? Like it's cool if you think Breece Hall is going to be great this year. That's awesome. But why do you get so upset that people don't think he's going to be awesome? Like why does that upset you so much? I don't get it.
I mean, yeah, I don't get it in general. If it's a guy who's your guy from your team, right? You're like a lifelong Ravens fan, and you think that he's like still, come on. Like it's fan. We're talking about fantasy. We're not saying the guy's a bum or anything. It's just
exactly. I'm not attacking his family. I'm not insulting his character. Just saying he's coming back from ACL. He's probably going to struggle. Like, I don't know. But yeah. But anyways.
Yeah.
The only issue with J.K. Dobbins is when is he going to actually show up? That's the issue with J.K. Dobbins right now is when is he actually going to show up? Because according to Harbaugh, it's like, hey, whenever he wants to, he can show up. Like it's not like a thing where they're like, oh, he's still working back from, because there's no injury here. Like John, he keeps saying an undisclosed injury, or he says, well, you gotta ask, you're gonna have to ask J.K. Dobbins about that because it's not an injury.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Look, if it wasn't, I feel like this is great value. I took him here in the mid 5th round. I feel like that's great because his ADP is a little depressed now because of the fact he hasn't been at training camp. If everything was as it was, 2 weeks ago, he's going in like almost the 3rd round, right? People are drafting him much, much higher, and then now it just dipped, and it'll get back up there once he shows up again. So, yeah. Look, and he's not. I don't think there's a path for him to be the top running back in fantasy because he's not a pass catching running back, and he's not going to be used as much as some other running backs. But yeah, as my second running back, definitely.
But he's a threat. Okay, like, all right, let's anger all the Nick Chubb fans real quick.
Again,
time to get angry at me
again.
In terms of fantasy, he's basically Nick Chubb. He's a guy that can go for 100+ rushing yards any game. Any game. I mean, he did it, 3 times in the last 4 games last year, and he wasn't even 100% healthy yet. And the offense was terrible. Tyler Huntley was the QB. They were like defenses had nobody to worry about. But he's not going to catch many passes. And he really, to have any kind of weekly ceiling, he needs to score. But we know he can score. So, like, I mean, say whatever you want, but you're basically getting like Nick Chubb at a discount. Maybe like a slightly. I don't even know if he's slightly worse than Nick Chubb, to be honest with you. He just hasn't played. Like he just hasn't played.
He's just been hurt.
Yeah, he's just been hurt. But you look at his game logs and you look at what he's done. He's like, the guy averages over 5 yards per carry every week. Every year of his career, not every week, of course. I shouldn't say every week. Over every year of his career. Granted, he hasn't had a lot of years, but and he was ran for 2,000 yards his last year at Ohio State. Not like he was a chump. Like he was a chump prospect, had 2nd round draft capital. Like, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, he's not going to be like a top 5 or top 3 running back because of the pass catching, but. Like you said, you're getting him in the 5th round. And honestly, now with him being on PUP and being out, like I was looking at the ESPN ADP last night. I think he's going in like the 80s. The 80s. Like he's going after defenses in ESPN, like after defenses.
Wow. That's called overreaction, overcompensation. That's crazy. I know. Like you can't react too much either way to the news. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, a guy like that is dropping so much, and a guy like Josh Jacobs, everyone's like, yeah, he's fine. Like, no problem.
That's what's crazy. It's like, what? It's like, and I would also argue, even if the good news is no Nick Chubb truthers watch our channel anymore. I think I've offended all of them. They no longer tune into our channel.
That might be true.
The other thing with Josh Jacobs is, first of all, you're talking about a running back who's probably not going to have any training camp. And we've seen in the past, with players, they can start off slow when they haven't had training camp. But also, almost 400 touches last year. There's been lots of studies done, research done on running backs coming off seasons where they've had at least 350 touches. And they miss more games on average, and their efficiency drops. Because it's hard. It's hard. Dude, that is a beating. 400 touches for a running back is just a beating. And we saw like every week last year, Josh Jacobs like would limp off the field, or he'd be like holding his hand, but he would keep playing. He'd go out there and play because he knew he had to play for the contract. Like he was playing through injuries. He's like, there's a lot of risk with Josh Jacobs this year, honestly.
Oh, a ton of risk. People don't want to hear that, though.
No, people don't want to hear that.
All right, here's a good question. Michael asked about some players that are long gone. Most overrated round 1 pick with all drafts we've done. And, you know, by this point, round 1 really doesn't change much. I mean, the only guy that I think didn't go in round 1 today that sometimes does is Garrett Wilson, but for the most part, it is what it is. So most overrated round 1 pick.
I mean, it's hard to say a round 1 guy is overrated.
The guy you're not drafting in round 1.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one I'm really not drafting in round 1. I mean, there's a reason why all these guys are going in round 1 because they're really good. If I had to pick an overrated guy, though, and again, I'm saying if I had to, I'm being forced to here, it would either be Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or A.J. Brown. Simply because we've never seen those guys deliver like round 1, value week in and week out. Like even like Amon-Ra St. Brown had some really awesome games last year, and then he had some duds. Same with A.J. Brown. Garrett Wilson obviously going into year 2. Like we're drafting those guys more on like what they can do than what we've actually seen them do. If that makes sense. Which isn't a bad thing to do. I'm not saying it's bad to do that, but if I had to pick, I'd probably pick one of those guys just because it's like, we know what Eckler can do. We know what Diggs can do. We know what Lamb, Kelsey. Okay, maybe some people will probably say Bijan because we haven't seen it, but I don't care. Right? We know what most of those guys can do. So it would be one of those guys.
Yeah, it would have to be the guys who are at the very end, like you said. So for me, and this is where I get when people saying Garrett Wilson in the first round, that's crazy. Like, why wouldn't you take an A.J. Brown over Garrett Wilson or, the Sun God or something? I get that's true. That's exactly true. But at the same time, you shoot for upside. He could be one of the top receivers in the game. So I'm with the idea of him going at the end of the first round, like 11 or 12. But besides that, I would say it's not even over. I'm like, none of them are overrated. But if there's a guy I feel okay not drafting and taking a shot on a Garrett Wilson or something else, it might be A.J. Brown because I feel I can get the same thing with Javonte Smith around later, which is what I've been doing a lot. Or, I don't know. He's just a little more volatile than all the good receivers. And he's been banged up a little bit more over the years. So I just feel a little less certain about him.
Yeah, we're being forced to pick an overrated player. It's not like I really think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've drafted all these guys at some point or other at the end of the first round. So. Oh, you took Penny. You know what? I considered Penny, but I thought, no, I'll wait. I don't think he'll get taken that high. I'll get my boy Shane, and then you take Penny. That's okay. I'm just going to assume he'll get hurt now.
Yeah, we were just talking about him, so.
Yeah. Now that hurt. That stings. That actually stings a little bit, right in the heart area. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Let's do a little reach, a guy I don't usually take. This year.
Well, he's finally back.
Took way too much last year. So didn't take him at all this year, but now I guess he's back. I don't know. He's healthy and he's not unhappy. I don't know.
Yeah, for how long? We'll see.
Oh, now that stings too. I was looking for Njoku to stack with Watson. Did not think he would get taken that high. You all are out to get me. Be like Clayton. Everyone's sniping me from every round, every position.
I've been sniped 50 times this draft. 50.
Every pick.
My top 50 players all got picked before my first pick. What am I supposed to do?
Let's see. Got some interesting comments here. Some interesting comments. I think King is implying that Eckler might get overrated because he says here pretty much all his production came from Lombardi's check down offense.
I don't know about that. I mean, I definitely. I mean, look, he's not going to catch 100 passes again. Like, that's just not going to happen. But you can look. I mean, you can go back to 2019. He had 92 catches. 2020, he had 54 catches in only 10 games. It's not like this guy like wasn't a prolific pass catcher before Lombardi. He was already a prolific pass catcher. You know, I don't think he's going to get 100 receptions. That's pretty insane, but he's almost a lock. If he plays all 17 games, he's a lock for like 70 or 80 catches. Now, will he score 18 to 20 touches for the third straight year or touchdowns? That's the real question, because that's what was really, I mean, 20 touchdowns 2 years ago, 18 touchdowns last year. That's hard to sustain that level of touchdown scoring.
Yeah. And this guy, he's not like James White or something. He was like simply a product of, the offense in the system and wouldn't, survive anywhere else. Like, I think he'll be fine. The touchdowns you can't ever count on. That's exactly right. But at the same time, I think he's proven. Himself. And he's also playing for a contract for next year too, isn't he?
He is, because
he deserves it.
Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal, and all they really did was like added some incentives, I think. So yeah, he's playing for a contract next year, and he's gotta show NFL teams he's because he's up there in age, right? Like he's up there.
Yeah. As far as running backs, he's getting close to retirement home.
Yes.
Put him out to pasture. All right. Well, now I feel like I should do this. I haven't taken Algier a whole lot, but I don't know.
I like that pick. I thought about him over Penny.
I almost say why I did it, because I already have Bijan, and so I'm hedging my bet there.
Yeah, I don't know if I do it if I have Bijan as much.
It's one of those things, like in best ball, you would think the opposite. In best ball, it's better not to get your own handcuff, because you don't have that. You're losing exposure to a different offense, different team, and the potential for multiple points in one, any given week, or really over the course of the season, right? Because there's only so much that Atlanta's running back room will do versus Atlanta plus some other team. But anyways, in redraft, it makes sense, because if something happens and Bijan's out, no waiver wire concern, no worries, no trading. You already have the backup, and he just steps right in. So, whereas in best ball, I never handcuff because it just doesn't make physical sense. In redraft, I only will if it's a Bijan CMC type situation, and if the handcuff is proven to be actually pretty good.
Yeah, and I think Algier will actually have decent standalone value.
And could get standalone value. Yeah.
We do get a lot of people saying, like, I'm hearing reports that Algier is going to be involved. And like, yeah, he's gonna be involved because A, he was good last year, and B, there's still gonna be a run heavy team. They're not gonna throw the ball 35, 40 times. And Bijan can't get, 28 carries every week. Like it's not gonna happen. So Algier will still be involved, I think, enough to have decent value in soft matchups. So when they're playing those like bottom 5, bottom 8 run defenses, and he's getting 8 to 11 carries a week, let's say, he could do some damage with those 8 to 11 carries because they're playing a bad defense. So I don't think he's one of those guys that like, he's not one of those handcuffs like Elijah Mitchell, who I just took, who probably is going to have almost no value when CMC is healthy.
Yeah, well, Elijah Mitchell could always have value if you can stay on the field long enough, but he was mixing in quite a bit even when CMC was playing. He sort of has a pass to standalone value. I think that's a good example of a guy who could be both handcuffed and draft worthy if you don't have the starter. Like Austin Eckler, that's not a guy you want to handcuff because who's the backup? Josh Kelly, maybe. Isaiah Spiller, maybe. And do you care? You shouldn't, because it doesn't really matter, because neither of those guys are getting all those dump offs and scoring touchdowns. So, yeah, you don't need to bother,
Yeah, same with like a guy like Barkley. Like, if Barkley misses games, is it going to be Breida? Is it going to be Gray? Is it going to be Brightwell? Like who's going to? It'll probably be some combination of those guys, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Most often, when team loses stud running back, they don't replace it with backup who assumes the same role. They replace it with 3 guys who will try to fill in that role.
Yeah.
All right, we got our 49er resident expert in the house, Clayton, saying Davis Price will take the RB2 role away from Mitchell. I thought he would do that last year, and he didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, all right.
You remember, I was way too high on Ty Davis Price last year, and he did nothing.
I feel like for 2 years in a row, like not this year though, although they really didn't draft a running back, but like I feel like 2 years in a row you kind of fell for the 49er running back trap. First with Trey Sermon and then with Davis Price. Because it's an easy trap to fall for, right? Because you're like 49ers running back. Yes.
Well, this is before they had Christian McCaffrey, right? It's like, okay, it's like Elijah Mitchell. Well, he's not going to hold up for the whole season, and he didn't. Oh, but then they traded for the best running back in the game. It's like, but even so, like you said, even before that, Davis Price wasn't even on the – he was on the practice squad or whatever. He wasn't even on the roster. They brought up Jordan Mason and all these other guys. Yeah. They were using Debo at running back. So, it had nothing to do with opportunity.
No.
And you're right. No. I did fall for that 2 years. No, and easily can stay away this year.
I feel like for as good as Shanahan is as like an offensive guy and a quarterback, honestly, like a quarterback whisperer, he's terrible at drafting quarterbacks and running backs. He's terrible at drafting them, right? Well, trades up all these picks to get Trey Lance, and now Trey Lance is he even ahead of Sam Darnold right now? 2 years in a row uses a 3rd-round pick on running backs, and they how long was Trey Sermon even a 49er for? Like a year and a half, and then he was cut. And stop drafting QBs and running backs. Don't do it. Just get Brock Purdy in the 7th round and turn him into Tom Brady. You're fine.
Oh, maybe he will. I thought that's the whole thing though with Trey Lance. I thought it was that Lynch Shanahan didn't want Trey Lance and they drafted him anyways. And look, here's your quarterback, and then that's why he won't play him because it's not his guy, right? So it doesn't really matter if Trey Lance looks like the next coming, of Jalen Hurts or Randall Cunningham or whoever. They're still not going to play him. But Shanahan would be like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. I got Brock Purdy.
I don't know. I have a hard time believing whenever I hear those reports that the head coach wanted this guy and the GM's like, no, we're taking this guy instead. That's a dysfunctional organization, and the 49ers don't feel like if you told me Ron Rivera wanted Justin Fields and Dan Snyder was like, no, we're not taking Justin Fields, I would 100% believe you, because that's dysfunction. But I don't believe that John Lynch, like, that if Kyle Shanahan was like, dude, I really don't want Trey Lance, John Lynch is going to be like, screw you, we're taking Trey Lance, make it work. Like, that doesn't seem like the relationship John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have to me. Like, they seem to have a good coach, GM.
Yeah.
So I
mean,
don't know if I believe those reports necessarily.
It was probably somewhere in the middle, kind of like, where Lynch is like, hey, look, this guy's amazing. Like talking him into it. Like, we've got to do it. We've got to pull the trigger. And Shannon's like, I don't know. Like, come on, trust me. You can mold him. You can do it. And then when it all falls apart, he'll be like, yeah, that wasn't my guy. I told you I didn't want him.
But I've never once heard Shanahan say that. I mean, he's probably never going to say it publicly, but I don't know.
I still say that.
I feel like that's what bad organizations do. I feel like good organizations sit down and come up with a plan as a unit, and I mean, look, maybe Shanahan was like, I see some flaws in him, but okay, I see the potential. Like, remember, they were coming off when they drafted Trey Lance. They were coming off that Super Bowl loss where Jimmy G just missed a wide open Emmanuel Sanders to win the Super Bowl. Like, missed him by 5 feet. Like, not even close. Like, just like blatant, like badly overthrew him to win the Super Bowl. Would have won. Well, they probably still would have lost because Mahomes would have got the ball back with like 30 seconds. Probably would have drove him down for the game-winning score. But the point being, right? So I think, like, you look at a guy like Trey Lance and you're like, okay, he may be raw in some areas, but he probably makes that throw. He probably makes that throw, because that is one thing. Trey Lance, he's got the arm, right? He's got an arm. So I don't know. Maybe it was one of those things where it's like, hey, we need a quarterback that can do that. We can fix the other parts. And then they happened to luck into Brock Purdy.
They totally lucked into Brock Purdy. Not giving Shanahan credit for that. All right. Let's go to the wrap up. We're done with the draft. We're not done talking about fantasy football. We're going to go team by team and just give a quick rundown of what we think. Let's start with number 1, the king of the world. Justin Jefferson, Ramondre Stevenson. Keep seeing Ramondre go a lot right there at the 212, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, he's like the perfect partner with JJ. And then Jalen Hurts, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Deontay Johnson, Pittman Sutton, Charbonnet, Freiermuth, Rashawn Johnson, and Gallup.
Yeah. So we got Stevenson at Hall at running back with Walker. That's good, because even if Hall struggles a little bit early, you got Walker there. I actually did think about Breece Hall where I took Fields, but I went with the quarterback instead. Obviously, you got Jefferson. That's great. You only need 2 wide receivers, but your wide receiver 2 is going to be like Deontay, Pittman, Sutton. I don't necessarily dislike those guys, but they just feel very safe to me. Yeah, this whole team just kind of feels like safe to me. Very safe team.
Yeah, speaking of handcuffs, you see the Walker and Charbonnet combo there. I think you limited your upside a little bit. And again, it's not like you can't flex a running back, but yeah. I hate to feel like I'm on repeat, say the same thing. I'm not taking Breece Hall. I would rather just taking a receiver there instead. Then you have Walker as your RB2, which is fine. And give your team a little bit more upside overall. But I agree I know what you're saying. Like Deontay, Pittman, Sutton, those aren't guys who are set to have career years, probably. They just aren't. I mean, maybe probably Sutton, because he just hasn't really done a whole lot yet, but
yeah.
Yeah. All right, and let's go to Clayton, who is now fully tilted because we're talking about the 49ers losing. But he took Pat Mahomes. After Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry, took himself Pat Mahomes, and then Ayuk, as always, Hollywood, Kittle, and then James Cook, Mike Evans, who earlier, by the way, I didn't mention it. I don't know. I don't want to promote false news, but somebody said Mike Evans rumored to be traded to the Jets. I had not heard that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have not heard that either.
I don't think that's happening. But anyways, all right. Evans, the Buck, Kamara, and Kendry Miller, Mingo Shaheed.
Got the Saints running back stack there. I like the start. I'm okay. Well, I think I'm okay with Kittle there in this format. Like we're looking at guys like Pittman, James Cook, who you got, Mixon, Madison, Pacheco, Monty, JSN. Like there's not a lot of. I'm okay with Kittle there, honestly. So, Chase and Ayuk, that's good. Hollywood is your flex, is good. You got Henry, that's great. You got Mahomes. James Cook is your RB2 is good. Bench is a little okay for me. I just don't see a big year for Evans. I've talked about Kamara to death. Kendre maybe late. I do like Shaheed, so definitely like the starting lineup here. Bench is so for me.
Yeah, and I think this was if there's a time to get a tight end that you feel good about, I think that's good because, like you said, only 2 receivers, not 3 receivers, and did a smart thing knowing that right after that pick, he could have waited on his running back because King of the World had already taken 3 running backs, so he probably wasn't going to take another there. So he waited, and he wanted James Cook. I mean, you got James Cook in the 7.2 as his RB2, so I think it turned out really good. So I do like the way this turned out. And then we got GGG 82. Going with CMC, Nick Chubb, Josh Allen, and Hawk at the 410. Let's see what I think about that. DeAndre Hopkins is number 1 receiver. Zay Flowers is number 2 receiver. Mixon, Kadarius Toney, Jacoby Myers, Warren, DPJ, and Rondell Moore, a.k.a. Ant-Man.
Well, it's definitely a good thing you only need to start 2 wide receivers. Obviously, running backs are very good. I mean, look, I talk about Nick Chubb a lot, but if Nick Chubb is your RB2, that's fantastic. You got Allen. I'm just not taking Hawkinson in the 4th round. I'm just not. I've talked about it. Talked about him a few times this year. He was not as good with Minnesota as people think he was. He just really wasn't. I don't think he's going to be any better than guys like Kittle, Goddard, maybe Pitts, maybe even Njoku, Ingram, Waller, especially since they added Addison. So I would have liked to have seen a wide receiver there because, I mean, Hopkins is your wide receiver 1, doesn't really do it for me. I like Flowers, but I also feel like Flowers is going to be a guy who, if Bateman's healthy to start the year and Odell's healthy to start the year, he might not come out of the gates strong necessarily because we could have he could have 3 wide receivers there. But I think eventually he does become awesome this year. But early in the year, man, your wide receivers could really, struggle for you. Then you're flexing one of Mixon, Toney, Myers. So I think the Hawkinson pick is what does it for me. I just would have liked to see a better wide receiver there instead of Hawkinson.
You know how I feel about that, and that's, to me, it's just too early. And I like Zay Flowers a lot as my 3rd receiver, not my 2nd. And Hopkins is okay, but I don't want to miss my number 1. So, yeah, it's not a build I would have made personally. You got good players, but it's just not the type of your type of team I'm going to build here. And then you are at the 4. Dice told you so. All right, so going with Ty Hill, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Justin Fields, Mike Williams, John Dotson, Goddard, and then a slew of running back 2s. You got Dylan Penny, Mitchell Brown, and Gainwell. I see what you did there. That slipped by me almost in the last round. We weren't paying attention. All right, so you have the Philadelphia backfield almost locked up. Look, Hill and Ridley with Williams, I guess, as your flex, or Dotson. That's so the best we've seen so far. Definitely one of the, if not the best running wide receiver rooms. Although I think maybe the Doritos have you beat there, but that's about it. And then you got Pollard, and then your RB2 mix and match. You got Fields, huge upside. You got Goddard, really solid. So, yep, this is. I think this is how you pull off the hero RB or anchor RB. Did it go the way you wanted?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy with it. I'd be more than happy with this team in a real league. I can make do with AJ Dillon or Penny or whoever RB2 for a while until, work the waiver wire or whatever I have to do. So, yeah, I would definitely be happy with this team.
All right. And then there's Ronnie, who was sandwiched in between the 2 of us. Went with Cup, Higgins, Keenan Allen, who I feel like is creeping up lately in ADP, right? He seems to be drafted a little earlier these days. I'm not sure why. I think a little bit of Canton buzz maybe doesn't hurt. And then Burrow, Terry McLaurin started at running back with Connor and then Madison. Then took Tank for me with Mostert at the end. Brandon Cooks, Justin Ross, and Darren Waller as the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Keenan Allen as your flex. That's great. I mean, Cup, Higgins, Allen, Burrow at the 4-8. I think that's just a fantastic start. And I don't necessarily dislike McLaurin this year. There's some wide receivers I would have taken over him, but I think for this format, I would have preferred like a Dobbins or a Sanders or a White or even an Aaron Jones or a Damian Pierce if you like those guys. And then you could still get Connor, Madison. And then I think guys like Brandon Cooks, in the later rounds is fine in this league because you don't need, right? You only need 2 wide receivers. You don't need, all this wide receiver depth. So I like the first 4 picks a lot. I think if you'd gotten like Dobbins, Sanders, White, Jones, Pierce, whoever, take your pick, Connor, and then you can still get Madison if you want some running back depth, and then get Cooks. I think this team is a lot stronger. But with Connor and Madison, even though I do like Connor, I mean, he's not going to be an every week RB1. I doubt Madison's going to be an every week RB1. These guys are going to be more like RB2s with maybe some RB1 type weeks. I think I would have liked it a little bit better if you'd gone running back over McLaurin.
Yeah, because essentially McLaurin is a bench player for you at this point, right?
Yeah.
So why not take a starting running back instead? And then you can still get a solid receiver. I mean, you could have got Dotson then on the way back. So instead of McLaurin and Connor, you're looking, Dobbins or Sanders or Pierce and Dotson. So yeah, but that's a minor change. But yeah, that's pretty solid. You got a very solid core there. So for waiting on RB, I don't know if this. I guess this counts. Does this count as 0 RB?
I mean, technically no, but in this format, I wouldn't go any longer than this without a running back in this format. So yeah,
right. All right. So there you go. And then there's me. I went Bijan, Devontae Smith, Cooper, DJ Moore, Dobbins, Addison, Deshaun Watson, Shane Bateman, Algier, Zamir White, and then Schultz at tight end.
Yeah, this is a very good team. I mean, you got 3 good wide receivers, you got 2 good running backs, you got Addison just sitting on your bench chilling. You got Deshaun. I really if you had gone okay, so you talked about hoping to get Njoku. I'm really curious why you didn't take Njoku over Bateman there when you already had 4 wide receivers. I think if you had Njoku instead of Schultz, this team would be like the clear best team, like head and shoulders the best team. I still think might be the best team we've seen so far, but I'm really curious about your decision to go Bateman over Njoku in this format when you already had 4 wide receivers and you wanted Njoku.
Honestly, I thought he would make it back to me. I thought because Waller, and Ingram and those guys, Muth, I thought that they would be taken before Njoku. So I just waited too long.
I think it's a good lesson though for everybody watching. In your redraft leagues, especially if there's a guy you want and you're like, well, maybe he'll make it back to me. It's usually better just to take him.
Yep.
Unless there's somebody on the board that you're like, well, I like this guy more. But if there's somebody you really want there, it's usually better just to take him because.
Well,
anyway,
that's
I
why
still think it's a very strong team even with that.
Well, thank you. I'm not crazy about Schultz there, but that is why I did take a Shane where I did because there were 5 or 6 running backs ranked ahead of him on the list. But I was like, no, I'm not going to take a chance. I think I just take him here, and I got him. So I don't know why I didn't do that with tight end also. But.
Yeah, if you would have had the Watson and Njoku stack on this team, man, you'd be the clear favorite.
Yeah. Well, let's
see. I still think you're the favorite. It's just maybe we have a chance.
All right. Let's see who else is a contender here because a lot of times these teams at the end come out strongest. Got Paper, went with Kelsey, JT, and Jacobs, living dangerously there. Debo, Kirk, and then Godwin, Dak, Dalvin Cook, just to shake things up even more at running back. Quentin Johnson, Jamal Williams, Foreman, and Juju.
Oh, they updated. I just realized they updated Juju's picture finally to a Patriot. Yeah, certainly this team has tons of potential and tons of risk, right? If I do think JT plays somewhere this year, so I'm not too worried about him. But Jacobs is the one that could definitely make or break this team. And the issue here is that let's say Jacobs holds out, or let's say he even holds out for games in the beginning of the season. There's no guarantee Dalvin Cook's going to be playing anywhere by the time the season starts. I mean, you might have to be rolling out, Jamal Williams, which, hey, to be honest, that might not be a bad thing because Kamara's suspended for the first 3 games, so maybe he'll be serviceable. I like your wide receivers. Like Debo there feels good. Kirk, I like that. I think Godwin is your flex is okay. You got Dak. So this team definitely has a lot of potential, but it certainly has plenty of risk too.
Yeah, this is a who knows kind of team. I mean, could be stacked, could be dead in the water. Who knows? But I mean, you went for it, and you committed. You fully committed to the dangerous running back theory here. Got a couple of comments here. Answer some questions before we finish out. Sammy needs some guidance. 5th overall. Bijan, Tyreek, Eckler, or Kelsey?
I'm gonna keep saying it. It's Tyreek for me. Maybe I'm getting too high on Tyreek Hill, but I'm starting to come around on Tyreek Hill breaking fantasy football this year.
Yeah, I'm taking Tyreek Hill, and my second choice there is Bijan if Tyreek is gone. That's it. Pretty easy. And then not going to put over. I don't want to cover the board accidentally, but Scott is asking about Tua, and give the TLDR version is how confident are we that Tua makes it through the season alive?
I mean, I'm fairly confident. Hopefully, he's a little safer when he runs. Like, because remember last year, even after the concussions, he was still like lowering his shoulder, and we're like, "What are you doing? Please don't do that." Hopefully, he's a little safer when he runs. So, yeah, fairly confident.
I feel strangely, I think I feel better about him this year because it's such an issue. It's such a known issue for him. He's going to be more careful. The team's going to be more everything. I think he'll make it, but you don't know, right? You never know. You never know with injuries. There's no way to put a number on it and say there's 70% chance he doesn't get a concussion. There's just no way. Let's go with the other John here. We're on team 8. CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Etienne as RB1. DK Metcalf, Justin Herbert, Pierce, Pacheco, Burks, and Njoku, Herbert, Rashee Rice, and Jalen Reed.
I mostly like this team. It feels a little early for Etienne. I'm not completely out on Etienne this year. I still think he'll be good. I think he'll put up good yardage numbers, maybe a little lacking in the touchdowns, maybe a little lacking in the pass catching, but I still think he'll be solid. I like that Pierce and Pacheco as your RB2s, I think is fine. I think either one of those guys can be a weekly RB2. You got Herbert, you got Njoku because Pierre didn't take them. You got Lamb and Adams, and I think Adams there is fine as your wide receiver 2. Flex in Metcalf probably or one of the running backs, so that's good. So yeah, I mostly like this team.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, same here. I prefer Etienne as a high-end RB2 rather than as my first running back off the board. But I won't knock it too much. You start out really solid at receiver and quarterback, and everything else is pretty good. Look, if Etienne comes through and he is a top 10 running back, you got a really good team. Then we got everyone's favorite snack, Cool Ranch Doritos, and that would be Stephon Diggs, Chris Olave, Christian Watson, and Drake London to start out with Trevor Lawrence. Quick question: do you think this is the best receiving group out there?
Yeah, this got to be Drake London is your wide receiver 4. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Now, let's see what happened because, again, this format, you're only starting 2 receivers and 1 flex. So Drake London is probably on the bench here. Then at running back at Aaron Jones, Monty, B-Rob, Damian Harris, Jerome Ford with Evan Ingram there to stack with T-Law.
Yeah, so, that's why in this format, I tend to go like I would have preferred. I mean, you can't knock your wide receivers. You can't knock it. And you got T-Law, he's fine. But your running backs are just a bunch of RB2s. So, which is okay. But, if this was a 3 wide receiver league, I would be like, this team is stacked. Like, oh my gosh, he's flexing Drake London. He's got solid running backs. I think I would have liked it better if you had gone like Burrow or Fields over London. And then even if you wanted to, you could have grabbed like a Pickens, a Lockett, a Judy, a Addison, whatever. And then started getting all those running backs. Or maybe even gotten a different running back. But I mean, certainly you got tons of upside at wide receiver. You got the QB tight end stack. Running backs are just kind of like okay.
Yeah, and like you said, if this were a 3 receiver league, yeah, this is one of the best teams out there. But as it stands, it just makes a little less sense for, having a stud receiver who you can't start, as opposed to a running back. And that's why normally, at the 6, it's not a slam dunk. I take, Bijan or all running back if he's there. I'll go CeeDee Lamb or maybe Kelsey. But in this format, it just makes more sense to mix it up. Rather than stacking receivers early. But overall, I think this is still one of the better teams if Monty comes through like we think he will. And I think I'm still okay with Aaron Jones there. All right. And then we have, it's Mike. Tragic lug nut. Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, basically avoiding wide receivers at all costs. And then he went Judy Lockett, JSN, Sky Moore, Gabe Davis, OBJ, with Pirine and Spears mixed in there.
Yeah, this is the quantity over quality. Although I like Lockett, I like JSN. You got his Seattle receivers. I mean, Eckler Barkley is a fantastic running back start. I don't even mind Andrews at 310, and honestly, I don't even mind Lamar in the 4th. But man, when I'm having this, Judy is my wide receiver 1, and Lockett is my wide receiver 2, and then JSN is my flex, I guess, or Sky Moore maybe. That's a little much, but I don't know what unless you don't take Lamar or you don't take Andrews, but I guess he did the best he could based on his start.
Well, but that's the thing. If you go early quarterback and early tight end and running back, then you're going to be left in the cold at receiver. I don't want Judy as my wide receiver 1. You're still going to have a competitive team. It's just the upside at receiver is lacking, and I don't see it being made up for with the bench necessarily. Like Sky Moore, if he fulfills everyone's hopes and dreams, he's still maybe a fantasy wide receiver 2 at best. Like, he's not going to be a top 10 guy. Like, he's just not. So, yeah, that's the only issue. This will be, I don't know. It'll be an interesting team to track to see how it does over the course of the season. All right, Andrea went with A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Gibbs, Najee, and Miles Sanders. And then Pitts, she's getting a lot of Gibbs. I'm noticing that too. Gibbs is definitely one of her guys. And then Pitts, Tua, we talked about, Gibson, Romeo Doubs, Nico Collins, Mooney, and then Devin Singletary.
I like a lot of these picks. You got A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle. That's great at wide receiver. I think, between Gibbs, Najee, and Sanders, you should be fine at running back. Obviously, you're going to have to probably flex one of those guys. Hopefully, Pitts breaks out this year. Hopefully, he does it. I think Tua as your QB1 is fine, but I think just for me personally, I'm okay taking Tua, but I don't think you need to take him that early.
Yeah.
You probably could wait on Tua and stack up some more wide receiver depth, which you really needed, because if something happens to A.J. Brown or Jalen Waddle, you're going to be starting Romeo Doubs, Nico Collins, or Darnell Mooney. And I like those guys, but I don't know if I want to be starting them every week necessarily. So I think I probably would have waited on Tua and tried to stack up some more wide receiver depth. Could have taken Elijah Moore, Sky Moore if you like it, Burks, Cooks, whatever. Even Evans or Sutton probably at this point are okay for some depth. So that's probably the only thing I would really change is just waiting a little bit longer on Tua.
Yeah, he typically doesn't go nearly that soon. But also, if you look at where he was taken, the only person who could have taken him from you was the guy who happened to pick right after you, and that was Heath. He's the only one who didn't have a quarterback. So if you take a chance and say, okay, he's not going to take Tua right then and right there at the turn, which he could have, but again, based on where he usually goes, probably not. Then you get another receiver like Elijah Moore there, or Burks, or whoever. And I probably would have taken another receiver anyways there instead of Gibson because you already had 3 good running backs. So, yeah, right there, the 7-8, I would have taken receivers. But overall, your starting lineup is actually really good. So I think you're fine anyways. Just the receiver depth is the only question. And I like the receivers on your bench. It's just I don't know if I like them in my starting lineup on a weekly basis if Waddle gets hurt. All right, and then Heath went with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the next team, Garrett Wilson, and then also 3 running backs, Swift, Akers, and White. Pickens, Javonte, Elijah Moore, Jameson Williams, Van Jefferson, Anthony Richardson, and Greg Dulcich.
So this is like, I like the first 2 picks. I like the last 2 picks. The middle, the kind of middle here is where it gets me. Like Swift, Akers at the 3-4 turn seems way too early. Same with even Rachaad White at the 5. I mean, I like Rachaad White, but like if I'm going to take a running back at the 3-4 turn, I'm taking Najee. Maybe I'm taking Brees. Maybe I'm taking Kenneth Walker. Maybe Dobbins, but like that's it. If I'm taking a running back in the 5th, like that's just too high for those guys, I feel. Even Javonte in the 7th, that feels too high for me. I mean, I know he's not on PUP and they're saying he's going to play, but I keep saying there's a difference between like being on the field and actually being effective. So still very worried about his effectiveness. Yeah, I feel like those picks 3 through 5 just don't do it for me. Too early for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to have a backfield of Swift, Akers, White if I got them in rounds 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
and you could have had those guys probably at least 2 of them, if not all of them, if you had waited, and come out with a Debo, a Drake London, or DJ Moore as your flex. And so it just would have helped your team a whole lot more there instead of having to flex, a Pickens or Elijah Moore, who look ton of upside, but again, those are guys you would prefer to have a little farther down your depth chart. So you still wind up with good players, but then also look, you had to be the last one to take a quarterback, the last one to take a tight end. You don't have a positional advantage there. You're really hoping those guys come through. So that's the other thing. It sets you back. So it's not that, we don't like the players you took. It's just where you took them. And that matters.
Correct.
Don't hate the players, hate the game or something like that. All right, guys, that does it for tonight and this week. So we'll be back again next week with some more mock drafts. In the meantime, remind you, if you want to get in on these, because they are now basically full before we even get online, you know how to do it. flockfantasy.com/endgame. That's also the way you can join our endgame redraft leagues. We still got some spots left in a couple of them. Join now. You can get in on the action draft with and against us and our amazing community members that you see are pretty smart themselves. So check it out. Plus everything else you get access to. All right. See you next time.